Adverse spillover effects from global geopolitical tensions will be severe for Europe and Central Asia, where output is forecasted to sharply contract in this year. With this, we'll be discussing on regional perspectives, outlook, and risks. Growth in most emerging markets and developing economies are expected to slow sharply this year, despite the fact that the recovery from the pandemic is far from complete. Russian invasion of Ukraine has led to a substantial downgrade in the forecast for Europe and Central Asia, and is also weighing on regions with large numbers of commodity importers. Per capita income is expected to be lower in 2023 than in 2019 in about half of the countries in East Asia and the Pacific, the Middle East and North Africa, Latin America and the Caribbean, and Sub-Saharan Africa. Source of successive charts are from World Bank. Abbreviations used in the charts denotes as shown in this slide. This demonstrates output growth. Accordingly, we can see that South Asia region and also Latin America and Caribbean region both records gradual decrease of output. This demonstrates revisions to 2022 forecast since January. So we can see that Middle East and Sub-Saharan Africa is reporting revisions as positive. That means they are having growth records. First year in which 2019 per capita income is surpassed is shown in this slide. Most of the regions, as per this slide, records the growth as against the first year as 2023 in most cases. War in Ukraine has increased downside risks. Elevated food prices increase the risk of widespread food insecurity, especially in regions where food is a large share of the consumption basket. Higher costs in some regions from supply chain disruptions and persistently elevated commodity prices could add to already high inflationary pressures and de-anchor inflation expectations. Renewed outbreaks of COVID remain a risk in all regions, particularly those with lower vaccination coverage. This shows number of people in acute food insecurity. Accordingly, Sub-Saharan Africa records more than 120 million people in acute food insecurity. However, Latin America and Caribbean region records a lesser percentage for both 2020 and 2021. This depicts food share in consumption basket and food inflation. We can see that Sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia region records nearly 45% of share of food in consumption basket, whereas their food inflation is somewhere around 8 to 10%. In advanced economies, share of food consumption basket is somewhere around 25%, and food inflation also records as 6 to 8%. This demonstrates CPI inflation. As of January 2021, Europe and Central Asia records nearly 3% CPI. However, as per latest data in April records CPI as 13%, whereas Middle East and East Asia and Pacific records latest CPI inflation somewhere around of 5%. This figure shows 5-year ahead inflation expectations. Accordingly, Sub-Saharan Africa records around 7%, whereas advanced economies recorded the 5-year ahead inflation expectations of somewhere around 2%. This shows that vaccinations against COVID-19 is very much less in Sub-Saharan Africa region. However, most of the fully vaccinated with boosters have been recorded in advanced economies. And that trend could be seen from Latin America as well as East Asia and Pacific regions as well. This demonstrates shipping intensity of GDP. Accordingly, East Asia and Pacific records higher percent shipping intensity of GDP, whereas Europe and Central Asia and advanced economies recorded the 50% approximate figure. Inflation in lower income countries, which was already rising before Russia's invasion, has accelerated as the war has pushed global food prices to very high levels. Rapidly living costs are increasing and weighing on growth, especially in lower income countries reliant on wheat imports from Russia and Ukraine. Following a surge in COVID cases in lower income countries earlier this year, new infections have trended down, facilitating a further easing of social restrictions. This figure shows inflation in lower income countries. We can see FAO Food Price Index is also increasing since January this year, and it's somewhere around 160 points. And it's an increase of 160% compared to the base figure. This demonstrates wheat imports and food insecurity in lower income countries. Accordingly, we can see that people in food crisis in Sudan is somewhere around 14%. However, that figure is very much higher than this country when we compare food crisis in DRC and Madagascar regions. We can see further that most of the countries are having imports from Russian Federation. That is common for almost all countries, including Sudan, Madagascar, Togo, Uganda, Mali, Malawi, Burundi, and Mozambique countries. This shows pandemic developments in lower income countries. We can see that stringency as well as new COVID-19 cases have been reduced gradually from January this year onwards. Rapidly increasing prices of food and further disruptions of wheat imports could leave many millions in acute food insecurity and extreme poverty, depressing per capita incomes in many low-income countries. Elevated violence and insecurity could continue to stymie growth in fragile and conflict-affected countries. In many LICs, vaccination rates remain very low, heightening the risk of new and more severe COVID outbreaks. This depicts growth. However, shaded area indicates forecast. Accordingly, we can see that low-income countries will report a gradual growth from 2021 to 2023 period. Same trend could be seen for fragile lower-income countries as well as other LICs. Ethiopia will record a gradual growth as well. These are reporting violent events in lower income countries. These include battles, explosions, violence against civilians, riots, and protests reported since the start of this year. As of now, from January onwards, these cases are being increased in lower income countries. This shows vaccine rollout. Accordingly, we can see that January onwards for fragile LICs, Ethiopia, Congo, and other LICs recording a gradual increase of the share of population who are fully vaccinated. Reference for today's presentation is from World Bank's flagship report titled Global Economic Prospects. Thanks for watching.